And maybe there are any other, let's say, insights or let's call it discovery of the year to end up this interview with something insightful, something that actually made an impact on you this year. What was the discovery?
That's a good question. What have I found this year that I'm really, really interested in? I think that we're kind of on the cusp of a lot of things. We're just, things are just starting to actually to come into a new phase of software. But I think it's going to be slightly different to what people expect. I mean, if you read the mainstream media and even the tech press, you'll hear a lot of people talking about LLMs like ChatGPT and so forth. But I'm still not convinced that those are going to be the aspect of AI which is the most important for programming and for software, for a number of reasons. First of all, they're extremely expensive, and I don't think that the industry has properly accounted for how much they actually cost to run. They're effectively loss leaders at the moment for the companies that have produced them, and I don't think spending that much money to attract people is sustainable. Secondly, they're not accurate enough, and we're starting to see that people are actually, for the first time this month in July, ChatGPT or OpenAI was one of the two big models, recorded a 10% drop in traffic to it.
Oh, I didn't know it.
Already. And largely people think that's because the models simply don't produce accurate enough output.
Actually, they were down for several days also. We noticed it. Well, I use it as a personal assistant, actually, like sometimes. And there were several days, like I want to ask for help, and ChatGPT was just like down, wasn't responding. It was like, oh.
Interesting. So that will be a trend, I think, to watch, is to see whether they actually can sustain the rate of people using it, whether they can actually improve the quality of the results. Because one of the problems with these types of model is, well, in classic AI, for this sort of unsupervised learning, what you do is you have a pool of data, which is your training set, then you have your verification set, and then you have a much larger set that you want to be predictive on. Okay, so you train it using the training set only, and then you test it against the verification set and check to see whether it's hit your goals, and then you sort of trust it that it's going to do the right thing on the much larger set that it's predictive on. With something which is supposed to be trained on the corpus of the internet, how do you maintain that separation? How do you prevent generated text from ending up back in its own training set? So there are all these kinds of feedback cycles, which could mean that actually this thing just doesn't get any more accurate, may actually get less accurate over time. And so without knowing that, I don't know that the general internet-based general LLMs are what is going to help us in the future. What I'm much more interested in, and so this was kind of a very long way to get around to the answer about what I think the discovery is.
Interesting. This is the topic that's...
is I think that one of the things that we're starting to see, and that we'll see more of in the coming year, is not supervised learning models which are trained on general internet corpus, or Stack Overflow, for example, but something which is much more closely targeted for a couple of reasons. First of all, there are actually intellectual property concerns with just training on just a general set of data, because how do you really know who owns that data? Yeah. Whereas if you have a set of private corporate data which you're 100% sure of the ownership of, and it's very specific and very narrowly focused, that means that you can potentially get very, very good answers within that restricted domain. So I don't know that anyone's come up with a term for it yet. A restricted domain language model. Restricted domain. Something which is designed to focus in on just one aspect of a task at hand. So rather than trying to do general text, something which is much more highly focused. And I think that we'll start to see that in specialized disciplines like programming, and that is probably the trend that I'm picking up on.